So in today's video, we're going to follow on from the last video where we painted this in the Kapci 2K Direct Gloss. Now, I have done a bit to the car since, but in the meantime, I've been getting all these panels prepped, getting all these panels ready, around doing another big project that we've got on the go at the moment, which will probably be the start of a next series of videos. But now all these panels have been prepped and ready, and I've got a little bit of a spare day while some stuff is drying down for 24 hours on the other car. Then I thought we'd take a look at the gloss stage on these panels and how I'm going to go about it. Now, for the most part, it is going to be quite similar to the gloss stage on the shell. We're going to get everything fully cleaned down, give everything a really good tack cloth, put the wet on wet primer on, and then obviously do the 2K gloss. Now, some people sometimes say, should you do the panels and everything all at the same time? Like, you can do if you want, but if you want to split it up like this, because the one thing that I don't want is all these panels lying around in the workshop, in between sort of getting the shell polished and then getting the panels polished and then get it all back together. But there's no problem with colour, you know, getting the colour match the same, as long as obviously you're using it from the same tin, you're putting it in the same mix, so you know, your thinners to hardener ratio and everything is the same, and also you're putting the same amount of coats on. Don't be putting obviously 2 coats on these if you put 3 coats on the shell like we did. Now, to start off, I've just used some slow panel wipe to give these panels a really good clean and a really good degrease down and get the excess dust off them. Then I'm going to go around with my tack cloth and the air from the spray gun and use that just to detack everything and make sure that any of the excess dust or any lint or anything like that is off the surface of the panel. Now, I'm using the same wet and wet primer that I did before. It's the MIPA 4:1 high build that you mix at a 3:1 ratio with 30% reducer. Now, I'll then leave that for 20 minutes to flash off. While I go and clean this gun out, I'll mix up the blue gloss ready to shoot that, and by the time I've done all that and had a quick brew, then this should be ready to shoot down the gloss over the top. Now, you'll notice on the outsides of these panels I sprayed panel wipe on them, and on the insides I just sprayed it on the cloth. Now, the reason for that is I don't want the panel wipe to get all behind the ribs of the bonnet and the boot, and get stuck behind there, and that liquid, obviously being a liquid, as soon as I start pulling the trigger, it's going to start moving around. So if I just spray it on the cloth, I'm putting no excess liquid onto the insides of the panels that could then get missed or not be dry when I start putting the wet on wet or the colour down. It's just one of those sort of safety things for me, that instead of completely spraying the inside of them doors where they've got all those areas that can trap the liquid, that if I spray it on the cloth, then obviously it won't trap the liquid. Now, I'm giving these a full tack off now, as I usually would, and we'll give them another tack off after we've put the wet on wet down. Now, I'm using the little Ego 190 for the wet on wet. It seems to be an ideal gun, to be honest, for doing wet on wet primer with. It puts it down really nice and smooth. You can get a nice smooth layer with it. You don't get a ton of overspray with it, so there's no sort of like dry overspray over the rest of the panel, and you can get the fan nice and small and accurate. So like with this bonnet, I can try and keep it off the face of the bonnet as much as possible, so that I can end up with a nice clean bonnet when I'm finished with it. Again, we don't need to be going around areas where the epoxy is rubbed through, or where we've rubbed through to the epoxy. There's a spot on that corner there where I've just gone to filler a tiny little bit, and there's 1 or 2 little areas where these have been prepped, and just the usual spots like round the very edge, just where we've caught down to the metal. So I want to make sure I've sealed them up. Now, originally with this, it wasn't part of the job to paint inside the boot and inside the doors and all that lot, but the way that it's ended up, and obviously having to bare metal the exterior of the car, then I thought, rather than leaving the back of the boot in the old colour, for the sake of giving it a sand down, so I roughed this down with a 180 and then went over it with a 320, and then we're just going to wet and wet it and then shoot a couple of coats of blue over it. It won't be perfect, but it'll be a nice, fresh, glossy finish that will obviously match perfectly in with the exterior colour of the car. So although this wasn't part of the job to be doing the insides of these, it's just going to be giving it that little bit of extra added detail and just a bit of it just makes it a nicer job. Originally we were only going to give this an external flashover, but because of the paint that was on it, that it had been sprayed with on the outside of the car, we didn't really have much choice but to paint strip it, so it ended up a little bit more involved than we first thought. So something like painting the back of the boot, obviously the bonnet's going to get done both sides anyway because that's a brand new panel, and just flashing over the inside of the doors, it's not going to be a massive amount of extra work. All of them we've done in the same way, apart from the bonnet, that's just been scuffed up, ready to have a coat of wet on wet and then the gloss. So on all the panels we've just 180'd them all right back to get them smooth. We're not doing any filler work to the undersides or the backs of them, and then we'll just give them a coat of wet on wet primer to seal everything up, and then go straight over with the direct gloss. Now, while we're at the start of this video, I do want to say a massive thank you to all the new subscribers, all the new recent subscribers over the past sort of 12 months, and also the real sort of OG guys that have been here from the beginning. We've just hit a huge milestone for me, which is 30,000 subscribers, which when I first started this channel is something that I never thought I would do. It was never something that I had in my sights. I started this as just something to put my mind into. In the evenings I just needed something to fill my mind a little bit, and that's why I started this channel, and it's just grown exponentially into something so much more. And as of the time of recording this video tonight, my analytics say that in the last 28 days we have had 325,000 views, which is absolutely phenomenal. And I know a lot of you guys have been absolutely loving this series, and a lot of you new guys have subscribed from this series as well. I just want to know that whether you are a new subscriber or someone who has been here from the start, I know there's a few of you guys that have followed my journey for the last few years. I just want to let you know that I really do appreciate all of you guys, and it means so much to have gained such a big following. Never when I started this did I start this for fame or for money or anything like that. I just started it for somewhere to put my head and somewhere to stop me thinking about stuff at night, and then that turned into something to help people, and that has been my main goal ever since, and that will always be my main goal of this channel, whether it's 30,000 subscribers or whether we get 300,000 subscribers, who knows. But my main goal is to always try and help you guys with more information, new products, better, more economical ways of doing things, and just keeping new stuff and new information out there for you guys all the time. But massive thank you to every single one of you. It really does mean a huge amount to a guy like myself that is a self-taught painter to have sort of built this following and such a great community of people. It's absolutely awesome, so thank you very much. Now, on the gloss stage for this, I'm using the Welcome Carbonio 360. I've still got the MP set up in this in the 1.2. I know I must have said now about 3 times that I keep meaning to switch this out for the 1.3, because the 1.2 just for my spraying style, I'd like it a little bit wetter. So I'm finding that although I'm putting the fluid out to a sort of nice manageable amount, that I just want that little bit of extra fluid. So you'll probably see when I finish this first coat, I do on some of the coats just go around and just give it an extra half coat, because I just want that little touch more. But as you can see, I've got this mixed 2-to-1, and I've put 30% thinner in it this time as per the TDS. I put that extra little bit thinner in because at the moment I'm just trying to push this gloss to see just how far I can push it before it gets to that point where it goes that little bit too far. So I'm just trying my best to be careful, because the last thing that I want to do obviously is push it too far and get a run in this 2K. But I have found that it does lay down that little bit nicer with the 30% over the 20% that we used on the shell, and it's still got no problems whatsoever with coverage. It flashes off really nice and quick as well with a fast hardener. And I have polished the shell now, which I'll show you at the end of the video, and it polishes up absolutely stunning. It polishes up just as well as a clear coat does. It's got a real nice gloss to it. So I'm glad that we made the decision to go ahead and put the Kapci scheme in and take the lesson all one out. It's going to make the shop a lot more economical cost-wise, a lot more economical on paint as well. I had some of the Kapci base coat in this week, which is quite a lot cheaper than the lesson system that we were on anyway. But what I didn't realise is that the thinners ratio to it is 1-to-1 because it is really thick. So I'd say that our paint cost would have been coming down by about half, or the base coat cost anyway would have been coming down by about half, due to the fact that the Kapci stuff is so thick. Both products are, the gloss and the base coat, and when you mix the base coat at 1-to-1, although I thought that was a bit too much, if you actually open the tin and stir it up when it's fresh mixed in the tin, then you really can see that you really do need that 1-to-1, and it's just as thick as everyone else's base coat. But like I did a bonnet the other day, I thought I'll order half a litre just to be on the safe side. I only actually used 250ml out of the tin because I topped it up with 250ml of thinners, and then that did me for painting a full bonnet on a large bonnet. So I ended up ordering twice as much as what I needed. So when it comes down to actually mixing and the amounts that we're going to be mixing in the future when the system gets put in, then obviously the amount that I'm going to be mixing is less, and it's going to cost me less. So it's going to be a massive thing business wise to try and bring some of the costs a little bit more in line, because at the moment a lot of costs have gone up quite a lot. Like electric has just doubled for a lot of us. And I've seen a lot of posts about that on Facebook. So bringing a few of these other things a bit more into line and running a more economical or financially economical system end to end, and even as far as like emissions, because we're mixing a lot less, we're going to be spraying a lot less. I haven't found any faults with the coverage with any of it yet. Everything's been good, and overall I think it's going to be a huge move for us as a business and as a shop. And also for the training side of things as well, it's going to give us a lot more to show on the training side of things. So you'll notice there what I did first. I did the faces, and then I did the edges, and then I've been around all the insides. Now you will find that with a fast hardener like this first coat's going to flash off really quick. So by the time I've gone round and I've painted the backs of these panels, I went straight ahead and gave the fronts their second coat, and then in between this coat and the third and final coat, I just gave it about 10-15 minutes to flash off. You can see this stuff does lay down nice. I wish I'd put the 1.3 in for it, so it'd just go a little bit wetter, a little bit faster, because I did have to come back across and just give this a little extra half coat, just in a few areas. I mean, don't get me wrong, you can't really, the finish is nice on it anyway. It's got a really nice, good reflection to it, but it just wanted that extra half coat. So next time we use this, I'm going to swap this tip out and put the 1.3 in it, just to see how that feels compared to this 1.2. But that extra half coat, that made that little bit of difference. So we've given this now 15 minutes, and we're still on the one pot of paint as well. We haven't mixed any more paint up. So I mixed up, I think 500ml of mixed into this cup. I did one coat on the exterior, one coat on the interior, and then I've done a second coat on the outside, and I'm just going around now with a second coat on the inside, and then I'll put a third coat on the outside. So the insides of these panels have all had 2 really good full wet coats, and the outside will have 3. Now that third coat is just an extra coat that's going down, obviously, because we're going to be flat and polishing these. So it gives us that little bit of extra wiggle room as far as flat and polishing it goes, that we're not going to risk rubbing through in any areas when we're flatting, or when we're compounding, or when we're soft heading it. And there's plenty of material there in the future that if this ever needs, I don't know, a couple of years down the line, it's been through a few car washes or something like that, or it's been parked under a tree and it needs a good machine polish, there'll be more than enough material there to give it another nice machine polish down the line. So these stands can be a bit fiddly to paint around. You do have to sort of take your time and just be careful that you don't get the spray gun trapped by accident and get stuck on something, because as with any type of painting, you know, if you stop for that split second, then you can quite easily just end up with a bit of a run where you get snagged up on something, or your airline or your cup gets stuck on something. So just be careful if you are using stands with these. Just take your time. Even if you need to, just tweak the fan down so you can get a bit further back, and rather than getting in between the stand, just shoot the paint around the stand if you need to. Now for this third coat, we're up to about 3.3 turns out with this 1.2, and I think it's putting it down nice. Like I said, this Kapci does go on and take a little bit of time to flow out. I'd say probably 20-30 seconds to flow out. It's going down nice, but I just think that 1.3 would give it that little extra bit of a kicker. I think maybe where my sweet spot is probably going to end up, around about 25% thinner, but with the 1.3, that'll give me that little bit more material going down, and it'll give me just enough flow out, I think, to get a nice flat finish without it actually running the risk of any runs or sags or anything anywhere. I think that's probably where I'm going to end up, but I'm going to test that out when I do the doors to see how that feels and how that performs. But each use of this is getting nicer and nicer. It is a nice product to use. I've had no issues with it. It holds up really well on bake as well. This was just as good off bake as it was when it came, you know, once it had flowed out off the gun and it had flashed off. There's no gloss drop or anything whatsoever. So I'm really glad that we have now made the decision fully and committed to putting this system in at the shop. Right, so that's all the first stage of the pilots done in the Kapci 2K gloss, the same as the body. They will come out nice, clean. Don't really knock how they've come out. Getting a little bit more used to this Kapci stuff now, the more that we're using it. Now the body itself has all been polished, so I'll give you guys a little quick walk around of that. So as you see, everything's been polished up now. I did end up doing what I said I wouldn't do, which was it was that nice and it was that close that I just ended up going around and giving it a full polish. For the extra probably hour that I spent giving it a full polish, I think you'll agree it was worth it. It's got a real nice finish to it now. I'm taking all the peel off, any remaining peel off it. I've still got to do that little bit of a wobble in the roof that's somewhere around there. But the reason for doing these like we've done them and doing these parts off the car is if we do these parts now, I can put these on a stand tomorrow, I can polish these, and then as soon as they're polished, I can bolt them straight onto the freshly polished shell. So they're not going to be sitting around on a stand, there's going to be no risk of them getting damaged or anything like that. I can literally take one of them off tomorrow, flatten polish it, bolt it straight on, take the other one off, do the same, and then I'll stick the doors on tomorrow afternoon and bolt them, do the same again, paint them, as soon as they're polished, bolt them straight back on. It'll just help reduce the risk of damage when we're rebuilding it, and obviously having a couple of stands lying around like that with parts hanging around on, you know, all it takes is you know, one of us or a customer just to accidentally walk into them and give them a little knock. Now on the final video for this, we'll probably take you through, say, polishing the bonnet. I think we'll do a little polishing job on the bonnet so you guys can see the final stage of the car, and then I'll give you a view of the finished car in all its finished glory. So that video will be next Friday for you guys. I'm gonna get locked up now and get this one edited up ready for you for tomorrow, and then yeah, I'll see you next week. Bye for now.